The derelict drone's corpse spun silently in the void, its last broken transmission still echoing through dead comm channels like a ghost. The Garden of Shadows, it had whispered before its power failed. 3 light years away, on the scorched surface of a nameless moon marked only as LX 447 in Dominion archives, a figure clad in tattered reconnaissance robes knelt before a stone that defied all known geology. The obsidian monolith wept thick black oil that formed words as it dripped onto the ashen ground. They buried US alive, and below it, in smaller, desperate letters, in the garden that grows backwards. The kneeling figure, revealed to be a surviving Dominion science officer named Calverin, reached a shaking hand toward the stone, his environmental suit's sensors going wild as they detected impossible radiation signatures. Before his fingers could make contact, the oil suddenly changed direction, flowing upward against gravity to spell a new message. She comes. Jaro awoke with a scream that turned to choking silence as she realized she wasn't breathing her own air. The flag's fragment, that cursed piece of ancient human technology, had burned itself into her chest, its spiraling scar sigil now pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence that matched the rhythm of some distant cosmic heartbeat. Her new eye, the Reforger implant forced upon her by the alien alloy on Oris 17, showed her things that made her claw at her face in horror. The visions came in fractured bursts. A coordinate carved in negative space where star charts showed nothing but void. Human soldiers turning their weapons on each other not in betrayal, but in some grotesque synchronization. Mechanical drones humming a lullaby that made reality itself ripple like pond water. She tried to stand, but the gravity on this nameless moon seemed to shift with her movements, the very ground conspiring to keep her kneeling. The stones around her began to vibrate, then sprouted wire-thin tendrils of black metal that whispered in a chorus of human voices. You're late, Walker of Scars. The harvest begins soon. The words weren't spoken aloud. They slithered directly into her auditory cortex, bypassing her ears entirely. Meanwhile, aboard the crippled Dominion prison barge chains of Dawn, Archivist Valon, now more machine than man after his encounter with the flag's signal, suddenly jerked upright in his restraint chair. His remaining organic eye rolled back as his augmetics projected a holographic horror show across the interrogation chamber walls. The crew watched in mute terror as the image of a fractal tree resolved itself, a tree that grew simultaneously upward into the future and downward into the past, its roots entwined with dead worlds and its branches piercing unborn ones. Where its shadow fell, humanoid figures made of pure darkness moved with purpose, their faces flickering through countless identities. The garden isn't a place. Valon rasped through broken vocal modulators, neural spikes jutting grotesquely from his eye sockets. It's an organism. The chorus didn't sing to imprison it. They sang because it made them sing. His head snapped toward the viewing port as if hearing some distant call. She's awake, and she's coming here. Back on the moon's surface, Jaro finally wrenched herself free from the whispering stones, only to collapse again as her Reforger eye forced another vision upon her. This time of a massive orbital structure shaped like a tormented human nervous system, floating in the void where the garden's coordinates indicated. As the vision zoomed in, she realized with dawning horror that the structure wasn't built. It was grown, and it was singing the same song from the drones, the same song that had played when the flag tore, the same song that had driven the first humans to erase themselves from history. The tendrils around her began to shiver in resonance, their whispers becoming screams. Too late, the harvest begins, the gardener awaits, the fruit must fall. Jaro's chest burned as the flag fragment activated fully for the first time, searing its map into her flesh with the precision of a starship's laser engraver. She didn't need to consult star charts to understand. The coordinates now lived in her bones. The Garden of Shadows wasn't just calling her. It had always been waiting for her. And whatever humanity had buried, there was clawing its way back out. The chains of dawn shuddered as its failing engines strained against the unnatural gravity well. On the bridge, what remained of the crew watched in silent horror as the main view screen flickered between static and nightmare. The orbital structure from Jarro's vision now visible in real space, its neural-like tendrils pulsing with sickly bioluminescence. First Officer Wren clutched her data slate like a lifeline as the ship's AI whispered its final analysis before going permanently offline. Structural composition matches pre-silence war human bio ships, but the growth pattern suggests it's been absorbing Dominion vessels for centuries. Jarro materialized aboard the prison barge in a storm of screaming metal, the flag fragment on her chest burning through bulkheads as it pulled her toward Valon's holding cell. The archivist awaited her with a smile that split his ravaged face too wide, his teeth replaced with data chips that scrolled fragments of the Reforger Testament. "You feel it now, don't you?" he rasped, holding up hands that had fused with his restraints. "The garden remembers your genetic signature, Walker. It's been waiting for one of the blood to return." On the moon below, the black monolith exploded upward, revealing itself as the tip of a massive spire that had been buried deep beneath the surface. As it ascended, the crumbling crust revealed horrors that defied understanding. Forests of flesh trees growing in perfect geometric patterns, their fruit, the preserved corpses of Dominion and Reforger soldiers fused together at molecular level. The spire's surface shimmered with the same oil that had formed the warnings, now resolving into a colossal projection of a human face Jarro recognized from her visions. Dr. Elias Vaughn, chief scientist of the Chorus Project, his features twisting as he spoke words that made the very fabric of reality tremble. Aboard the chains, Jarro and Valon convulsed simultaneously as the transmission hit. Not sound or light, but pure information injected directly into their nervous systems. The truth unfolded in their shared consciousness like a poisonous flower. The garden's origin, not a weapon or prison, but an experiment gone catastrophically right. Humanity's attempt to engineer a universe without suffering. The Silence War, never a conflict between species, but a civil war between human factions who disagreed on the garden's harvesting of entire civilizations. The flag's true purpose, not memorials, but quarantine markers placed on reality fractures where the garden's influence leaked through. Valon began laughing through tears of black fluid. "We got all backwards. The Dominion weren't the ones who erased humanity. We were the cleanup crew." His laughter turned to screams as the spire's projection focused on Jarro, Vaughn's voice now coming from every speaker on the ship. "Protocol. Final harvest initiated. Bloodline verified. Jarro, 7. Last of the Vaughn seed line. Prepare for universal grafting." The chains of Dawn's hull groaned as the garden's neural tendrils embraced it in a deadly caress. Somewhere in the screaming dark, Jarro's Reforger, I showed her the next horrifying truth. The spire wasn't a structure at all, but the fingertip of something vastly larger reaching up for between dimensions. And it was hungry. The chains of Dawn screamed as the garden's neural tendrils penetrated its hull, the metal groaning like a living thing in agony. Jarro stumbled through collapsing corridors. Her Reforger, I now showing her the true nightmare. The ship wasn't being destroyed, it was being assimilated. The walls bled black oil that hardened into strange circuitry, while crew members who'd breathed the spores coughed up vines that blossomed with data flowers containing their dying thoughts. Valon dragged himself after her, his augmetics rewriting themselves to match the garden's fractal patterns. "It's not killing us," he gasped, his voice distorting as his vocal implants reconfigured. "It's archiving us, like it did to the Reforgers." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the neural spire's projection of Dr. Vaughn now fused with the ship's AI. his face stretched across multiple monitors, each screen showing a different era of his existence. Young scientist, war criminal, and finally the thing he'd become, his features blending with the garden's biomechanical horrors. Jarrow, 7. The voices chorused, 1,000 Vaughn echoes speaking through the ship's ruined comms. You were grown from my marrow to finish what we started. The final harvest requires a Vaughn to open the gate. Jarrow's hands shook as new memories erupted in her mind. Not visions, but her own suppressed childhood. A lab deep beneath Mars where hundreds of identical dark-haired girls slept in glass pods. The whispers of the gardeners, their human faces half consumed by biomechanical symbionts. And the awful truth, every Jarrow had been designed to die at specific checkpoints, their cumulative deaths forming a genetic key that would complete the garden's growth cycle. She was the 7th, and the last. Outside, the garden's tendrils began weaving the chains of dawn into a grotesque, new configuration, a flowering pod ship that would carry the harvest to surviving worlds. Valon grabbed Jarrow's arm, his eyes wild. The Dominion knew, he hissed. That's why we hunted the flags. Not to erase humanity, to contain the garden's awakening. His skin split as Dominion control implants he'd never known about activated, revealing glowing circuitry that matched the Spire's design. He wasn't just an archivist. He was a sleeper agent, one of thousands planted to monitor quarantine zones. The ship lurched violently as the garden's main consciousness fully noticed them. The walls dissolved into memory fog, transporting them to the garden's heart, a cavernous space where the neural spire's roots plunged into a void filled with inverted stars. Here floated the gardeners in their true forms, humanoid shapes woven from light and shadow, their bodies hybridized with the same technology that birthed the flags. The tallest figure detached from the chorus, its face shifting through every Jarrow clone's features before settling on her own. Little 7th, it whispered with her stolen voice. We've been so lonely. Jarrow's flag scar burned white-hot as the gardeners began their hymn. The same chord progression from the drone that sang, but now she understood its meaning. Not a song, a countdown. The final harvest wasn't destruction. It was the garden's attempt to rewrite existence into a painless simulation, with the Vaughn clones as its architects. And she was the final keystone. Valon made his choice. With a roar, he tore open his own chest cavity and activated the Dominion's last resort, a black hole bomb sewn into his ribcage. The flags were never prisons, he screamed as the singularity ignited. They were landmines. The garden shrieked as space-time fractured around them, the explosion not destroying but displacing, hurling Jarrow through a kaleidoscope of broken realities while the gardeners scrambled to stop the cascade failure. She landed hard on cold metal, the flag's glow the only light in the darkness. As her vision cleared, she realized where the garden had spat her out, the derelict hull of the Epitaph, the legendary Reforger command ship from the Silence War's final hours. And etched into the rusted bulkhead beside her, a fresh message in that same black oil. Welcome home, number 7. Now, let's end the war. The derelict husk of the Epitaph breathed. Jarrow stumbled through its corpse-dark corridors, her flag scar casting jagged shadows that moved independently. The ship wasn't dead. It had been waiting. Every surface wept the same black oil from the moon, forming words that slithered away before she could read them. Her Reforger eye finally stabilized, showing her the impossible truth. The Epitaph existed outside normal space-time, anchored to reality only by the flags planted across the galaxy. And it was hungry for endings. Dr. Vaughn's voice whispered from the walls, but this time it came from her own mouth. You finally understand, 7. The garden wasn't our enemy. It was our salvation. The memories flooded her, not implants or visions, but her true past surfacing after centuries of suppression. She saw the Silence War's final hours not as history recorded them, but as they truly happened, The greatest Reforger minds gathered not to fight, but to surrender, to let the garden consume all human pain forever. The corridor opened into the Epitaph's heart, a cavernous chamber where the last Reforgers still stood frozen in time, their bodies fused with the ship's biomechanical nervous system. At the center floated their ultimate creation, a miniature garden, its branches heavy with galaxies yet to exist. And impaled upon its thorns, the corpses of every Jaro clone who'd come before her, their blood forming a spiral scar in the void. Valon's voice crackled through her comms, somehow still alive in the collapsing singularity. Jaro, listen. The flags aren't landmines, they're votes. Each one represents a world that chose to forget. The Dominion didn't erase humanity. Humanity begged to be erased. Static swallowed his next words as the garden's tendrils found him at last. His final transmission was a single image. The Earth as it truly was now. Not dead, but dreaming inside the garden's roots. The chamber trembled as the epitaph awakened fully, its systems integrating Jaro's DNA. The ship's walls dissolved, revealing the cosmic battlefield outside. The garden's neural spire locked in combat with something infinitely worse. The harvest wasn't the garden's design at all. It was a desperate defense against the true enemy. The prime singularity itself, the sentient black hole that had birthed existence and now wanted to unmake its flawed creation. The flags, the drones, the clones, all just pieces in a game older than time. Dr. Vaughn's projection appeared beside her, his form flickering between scientist and monster. You're the last, Vaughn. The final flag. Plant yourself in the garden, and we'll rewrite the universe without suffering. Or, he gestured to the epitaph's controls, where a single button pulsed with the same light as her scar. Press that, and the flags detonate. The garden dies, and everything remembers the pain again. Jaro reached for the button, then stopped. A new understanding crystallized. There was a third option. She tore the flag fragment from her chest and plunged it into the miniature garden. Not to destroy or surrender, but to graft. The epitaph screamed as her blood, the last free human blood, merged with the garden's roots. The visions came faster now. The prime singularity, recoiling as its own creation turned against it. The flags across the galaxy blooming into bridges between realities. The Reforger corpses in the walls smiling as they crumbled to dust. The garden didn't need to harvest or hide. It needed to grow, with humanity as its thorns. Space itself unraveled as the new paradigm took hold. Jaro's body dissolved into light, her consciousness spreading across the reborn network of flags. She saw the Dominion archiving its lies, the drone that sang its lullabies, the unburnt soldiers keeping their vigil, all part of the pattern now, all alive in ways they'd never been before. On 1,000 worlds, black flags turned white, and in the dark between galaxies, something that had been sleeping for 10,000 years opened its eyes. The war is over. The reckoning begins. Subscribe now for our next saga, The Awakening World, where the flag's true purpose will be revealed. Witness the unfiltered history of the Silence War in our complete Chronicles of the Lost playlist. Every mystery, every lie, every buried truth awaits.